Or shot fire, officer down, shot fire, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fire.
223, be advised, we have a visual on enemy paratroopers at grid Papa uniforms.
Welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation, a podcast dedicated to inspiring hope and healing for first responders, military veterans, and anyone facing PTSD and trauma. All right, guys, have a very special episode guest for the episode today. I actually recorded an episode of the Ian Bick podcast just about a month ago in Connecticut. As a lark, I asked Ian if he'd like to be a guest on my podcast. He shocked me when he agreed. I was very, very pumped. He is a very busy man. The success is overwhelming, and his story is mind-boggling. As most of you know, watch his podcast. It's a little bit different. Mostly have first responders and military veterans telling their story. But Ian, as a civilian, has a very inspiring story of himself. And I would just love to tell it. And for those of you who are watching, who are coming from the military and first responder backgrounds, you know, listen to all the stuff that Ian's been through and the fact that his mindset stayed strong. He got through it. And just another example of you didn't have to have served necessarily to have gone through life's trials and tribulations. Ian's been through the ringer at a very young age, and he has ascended to great heights. And, I just want him to tell his story. So, Ian, welcome to the podcast. It's an honor to have you on. And I want to thank you you were so gracious to me. Your girlfriend, I met your dad. He was such a nice guy. I had such a great time going and doing your show.
Yeah, of course, Mike. Thanks so much for having me. You know, that's what it's all about. When someone, comes on your show, you got to do their show too. No matter how big the person is, if someone asks, I'll always say yes. And you're a great guy. Everyone loves your episode. It's performing really well, and hopefully you liked how it came out too.
Yeah, I was pretty happy with it. It's funny. I typically don't read comments just for the fact that no matter Mother Teresa, it's funny because me and Taylor Kavanaugh were talking one night, and he's like, Mike, just so you know, when you get into the space, there's going to be hate no matter what you do, how good you are. There's going to be hate, and I'm reading some of them, and I think I had mispronounced vitriol as vitriol, and then I was making a point about someone who owns a 767, and I was stating the fact that I'm not talking about a Learjet. I'm talking about, and it was either a 747 or a 767. And they're like, this guy went to college. He can't even pronounce vitriol, and he's comparing a 767 to a Learjet. I'm like, bro, first of all, you missed the point. Secondly, as you know, man, it doesn't matter what you say. Some other guy said I was fascinated with death. I'm like, I thought I was basically saying the opposite. I wasn't fascinated, no fascination with death, but
and then they say you get your timeline wrong, like you didn't actually do the career if you say the year wrong, or people are just, they're just silly. But you can't. I learned that very early on in my career doing this, because I used to obsess over the comments and take offense to it. Now people can say whatever, I'm like immune to it. But I do see some guests, they'll argue back and they'll get really worked up, and then they'll text me like their paperwork or records. I'm like, dude, I don't care. I'm neutral, like. Some people are going to believe you, some won't. It's just, that's the name of it, and you need the negative comments. Otherwise, if you just had good, you eliminate half the comments. That's like exactly. 50% of people vote for one president, 50% vote for another. You don't just wipe out half of the population that doesn't like that person.
Exactly.
So
it keeps you humble too.
Yeah, exactly. People, and a lot of these comments are funny. And you also got to say, if someone is just sitting at home saying nasty things, tells you more about them than it does about you.
Exactly. I always say that's an unhealed individual. They'll sit there, I'm sure during your 4.5 hour podcast, you said something wrong, whatever you said, and they're just going to harp on that like it was the greatest discovery of their life. So, yeah, like you said, you just have to, let it go, laugh it off. And that's essentially what I did. So, yeah, I had a great time recording the podcast, and, thank you very much. And it's been great feedback. I've gotten people hit me up on DMs about my message. First responders and cops who were struggling, who said, thank you, I needed to hear that. And to me, you could give me 1,000 hateful comments. You give me one like that, it makes everything worthwhile.
Yeah, exactly. I like your set, too.
Thank you, brother. Yeah, it's, did a few little set changes, but I like this one now. I'm going to stick with it. Yeah. Until I get an in studio like the great Ian Bick.
It's easy to do. You'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see. So, all right, brother. So, for those of you, those who don't know you, please kind of tell us about you, where you grew up, how you grew up.
So I'm from, or I was born in New York City. My dad was my parents lived in New York City, and my dad was actually a public schools teacher before he retired, and then started a second career as a caterer. But my mom was a paralegal, but they wanted to raise their kids not in New York City, so we moved to Danbury, Connecticut. My dad had his summer home there, and that became their home. They renovated it and made it the home where we'd grow up in. It was me, my mom, my dad, and my brother, who's 4 years younger, and grew up in like this gated Jewish community that was on a lake. Middle class, good upbringing, family vacations, family dog, Friday nights, family pizza night, game night. Went to private school for a few years because I was bullied as a kid. People would call me like chubby and Twinkie and just pick on me. I was always the kid that was like last picked at gym class for a sport. I wasn't really athletic. I was in a musical theater. And so that was my upbringing. And, I always had a knack to go against authority. Got into trouble, say, in middle school. I was a kid that wore a backpack when they banned backpacks because of overcrowding, or would wear flip-flops to school. I had a Hollister shirt that would say, "This is what happens when you party naked," so I would get suspended for that. And then I'd butt heads with people in the community. Like we had a president and a vice president and a board of directors in the community, and they would make rules targeted towards us kids, like you couldn't ride a dirt bike without a license, you couldn't use paintball guns, or you couldn't have a fire without an adult present at the beach, things like that. So, we always went up against them, did ding dong ditch. This is like 7th or 8th grade. Freshman year of high school, would do ding dong ditch, firecrackers on the doorstep. And then one night, this is kind of like the pivotal moment in my story is, freshman year of high school going into sophomore year. Me and my best friend, Steven, took insulating foam on mischief night before Halloween, and we foamed their car door handles, thinking that it would just lock their doors, but instead it dripped down the side of the doors, caused $5,000 worth of damage, and the police automatically came to us because we were the black sheep of the community. And then my dad let them go into our garage, thinking that his kid wasn't dumb enough to have the evidence still there. And there was still the spray foam, hardened, dripping down the can. So
Shit, my kid. Oh, shit.
Yeah. So I got,
there's a guy with a gun across the street.
and they did the tactic of they went to my friend's house first, said I was squealing like a pig, and vice versa. And I held strong, he didn't. But what's funny looking back on it now is that it foreshadowed everything that would happen later on in life with a larger law enforcement, going from local cops all the way up to the federal level. That was just 4 years later. So to have that first interaction and whatnot was interesting. So I ended up getting community service, and I started this thing called Fight for the Homeless, where we sold those Live Strong bracelets were popular at the time. We sold them for $1 a piece. And raised money for the local charity, fulfilled my community service. And I was like, well, I liked what I was doing with that. I wanted to take it to the next level. So I did a school dance, and I called it A Night at the Matrix. It was this corporate center we rented out. And now I'm sophomore year of high school. I'm 15 years old. And at that corporate center, I would actually get my first real job aside working for my dad, because I always worked for my dad, helping with event planning. And I always had a job. I was always a hustler, selling candy bars at school or energy drinks or whatever, odd jobs, lemonade stands. And so I'm doing all these things. I do the dance, and it was at that dance when I realized there's money to be made, promoting parties, getting kids to go buy a ticket to something. And I realized that there wasn't any events outside of school to do that. So it's around this time, 2011, I start throwing house parties at my parents' house. And these, I would tell them 50 people were coming, and then 200 would show up.
Wow. And they were cool with that. They weren't,
yeah,
they didn't,
my dad would rather us at the house than anywhere else. They didn't allow drinking or anything, but we would sneak it, of course. And then we did the after prom party, and my parents, through my dad's catering connections, would rent a whole tent, a wedding tent to put on the yard, put a dance floor, porta potties, a DJ.
Wow.
So it was a whole thing with it, a whole extravaganza. Eventually they got tired of it, and they're like, you're done with this. And I just did an after prom party my senior year, or junior year. But I then shifted to saying, okay, I'm building a brand. kids know me, and I started renting out a local nightclub. There was these things called teen nights back in the day, and I got the idea to like bring them back. And so I rented this club called Tuxedo Junction and hosted.
If I can, for 1 second, the awareness of a 16-year-old to know that he's building a brand blows me away. I just want to say that. I mean, obviously, you have this entrepreneurial spirit and work ethic, but the fact that you knew that you were building a brand at that young age is mind-boggling to me.
I think I just saw. I think I compared it to like my dad's business. He was a caterer, and he was known for like events, or he had a company. People would reach out, and I think you see that with like school clubs, like you have Key Club, Peer Leadership, any type of clubs like that. So I think, just in my mind, I knew it was like a club or a brand in that sense, and I knew the basics of business. So we just we started down that path and started putting out these events. It was me and a couple other kids from high school. We called it the Halloween rave, the Christmas rave. We did a paint party where we'd throw, washable paint at the crowd. And I would make like 10 or 15 grand a night, in high school, once a month. It was incredible. I was successful. At that point, I decided I'm not going to go to college. I'm going to do this for the rest of my life. I aspired to be like the next Mark Zuckerberg, no college, the Social Network movie had just came out. I thought I was a real entrepreneur. I thought I had made it in life. But I got ahead of myself. I had a big ego, of course, and I was wearing like a suit and tie to school. I couldn't even tie a tie.
Really?
Yeah, my dad would have me tie a tie. I'd have a briefcase. I'd get suspended for taking business calls, like fake business calls in the middle of the classroom. And
how are your grades? You doing well in school, or?
So freshman year, sophomore year, really good, top of my class, got into AP classes because I wanted to be an FBI agent. So I knew you had to get good grades.
Really?
But then when I got into this business world, I was like, college is a scam.
Yeah.
I don't care about school anymore. So like junior year was my last year of like probably like, B's and started to go into C's, but then I still had to go to the AP classes. So I just doodled on the AP tests the whole time because they said they threatened to like suspend you if you didn't go to the actual test, which is stupid because you paid for it anyways. So why is that mandatory to go? So I just scribbled and doodled for 5 hours for the length of the test. And it's funny, like they promote the whole AP class for college credits, and you ask any of those kids and none of those counted in actual college. Like,
is that right?
Yeah.
That's so funny. I never knew that.
Yeah. A lot of those AP classes were never honored at actual college. It might look good to get in, but it's not an actual college accredited course. So it was just silly. So I did all that, and then senior year I graduated like a half a semester early, and then in my mind the next step from promoting clubs was concerts, to get into the concert business. So I started raising money from friends and family. I went to like LegalZoom.com, printed out a contract. And because I just figured in business, if you're to borrow money from someone or raise investments, you need a contract.
Absolutely. So
I got like a one-page contract. And at first I went around to people and said, do you want to invest? We had like spreadsheets with how much the show was gonna cost. We had this.
Are you approaching adults or are you approaching? I
had kids first. Approach kids, and then like my aunt and uncle who had money and a couple other people, but it was mainly kids because with the teen nights I would have kids invest a couple $100, not that I needed it, but just to feel a part of it, and so they had skin in the game to help promote it, and they would make like $1,000 back on it for doing the night. So I had a reputation for that, so I went to those people and no one wanted to invest. They thought it was too much of a risk. So I edited the contract to say I'll guarantee your money back. Now, I had no assets and there's no collateral or anything, but that stuck with people. So within a couple of weeks, we had 120 grand raised.
Wow.
Between
that's crazy.
These are just kids that had some money saved up, a few grand, or they would bring checks from their parents for, I think the most we got was like 10 grand from a parent at that time. And they would come to school, we'd sign the agreement, I'd deposit the money, and we had 120 grand in the account. I make an LLC for my business. I'm 17 still at the time, and this is all legitimate. There's no fraud. This is all like honest raising of the money. Aside from maybe it's a little unethical to guarantee the money, but in my mind, if you get 2,000 people to come, the place holds 5,000. The other 3,000 people is your profit, and 2,000 is your break even. And it's Wiz Khalifa, a big hip hop act. It's gonna work.
Oh yeah.
So what ends up happening is the show doesn't happen because one of our friends that was a partner at the time ended up not having the connection.
Okay.
So we call a meeting with all the investors and offer them all their money back, which was the right thing to do. About half of them say they're going to keep their money in, and we use that money. The other half get it returned. The half that leave their money in, we had like 60 or 70 grand left. We decided to put it into a string of shows in Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, with some of the people we partnered on that first show with. And the goal was, if you sprinkle this money over a bunch of shows, there's more potential to make money and less risk, because if one loses money, you'll make up for it on the others.
Right.
Well, what ends up happening is they all lose money.
Wow.
Not a single one of them makes money. Artists.
Looking back now, why do you think that happened?
I think we were all kids. I mean, I was a senior in high school dealing with freshmen in college that knew nothing about the college business.
Okay.
I'm like the hedge fund person where I raise the money and give it to individuals who are like promoters in college. They were new to the business. And also I got lazy, like the teen parties. I was hustling. I was putting out the flyers. I was promoting. Then I took a seat for these concerts and going into markets like Rhode Island or Massachusetts that I knew nothing about. And I wasn't a college kid. It wasn't relatable, you know. I didn't know. I didn't know how to promote. I didn't know any of those things. So I thought I had made it when I really hadn't. And I put all this money out and they all lost to all of these things. But what ends up happening is the first event, I was told by these partners that it was making money. Turns out wasn't making money, but I had told the investors, who are kids, who are telling their parents that they're making money. So the night of the show, I can't sit there and say, you know, hey, it actually lost money. They're going to think I'm scamming them, or
exactly.
You know, but that's what ends up happening anyways. But I end up lying and say that it made money. So now I'm in the hole, because not only did I tell them it's a profit, but remember I guaranteed their initial money back. So say they have 10 grand in, I'm on the hook for whatever it lost, plus a guaranteed profit of like the 2 or 3 grand I'm making up because I said it made money.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cutting Edge Testosterone Therapy, a veteran-owned, family-run clinic led by a retired first responder. At Cutting Edge, they help men and women rebuild strength, focus, and vitality through advanced hormone therapy, peptides, and performance-based weight management. Whether you've served your country, your community, or your family, Cutting Edge helps you get your edge back safely, professionally, and with people who understand what service takes out of you. Cutting Edge offers individualized care with no monthly fees or contracts. Learn more at cuttingedgetestosteronetherapy.com. Cutting Edge Testosterone Therapy, built by those who serve, for those who still do.
You're responsible for between what they gave you and what you're responsible for give them as a return.
So after these string of shows, because you get some money back, like it's not like you lose 100%.
Right.
I was probably in the whole like 50 or 60K with promised profit and everything. Now I'm, 18 years old at the time, and I owe 50 or 60 grand to friends and family.
Damn.
Now,
does mom and dad know this, Ian?
No, they have no idea. I tell my business partner, who is another kid, who is invested, who gives us the idea to get into this electronic business, selling Beats by Dre or wholesale electronics. And that's
headphones.
Headphones.
Okay.
They turned out to be fake, but we didn't know them at the time.
Oh,
but we're able to buy them for like $50, and those things sell for $400.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking, okay, that's a 200, 300, 400% return. I could go to you and say, hey, give me $5 grand and I'll give you $7,500 back in 30 days, because that's how long it would take for the product to sell. So I'm going to you and say, hey, Mike, give me $5 grand. I'm going to give you $7,500 back in 30 days. I thought that was just a fair deal. I didn't know anything about usury or a Ponzi scheme or high interest rates. So I do that.
You know what's funny about usury, though, is American Express could charge 30% a month.
Yeah.
But if it's done on the street, then it's usury. That's what cracks me up about usury, brother.
Yeah, there's all these credit cards. I don't even think there is such thing as like a low credit card interest. I think everyone's at like that high amount, except for like the introductory period where
they get you
0%
transfer.
Or 6% or something. But then I think it shoots up crazy. Like
I have an 850 credit score, bro.
30%.
Yeah, 30% is not usury, but if it's on the street, it is. It's amazing the way it works.
Yeah, it's so nuts. So we were doing that, and the word got out that, if you give, so through that, I was able to pay off the other people because money's coming in. We're making a little bit of money on the electronics, but word gets out. If you give Ian Bick, X amount, he'll give you 50% back in 30 days. So within a couple months, now I'm 18. This is like that time period where the actual case activity would start.
Okay.
What I would end up going to prison for, but we raised like $600,000.
Holy shit.
For this business and doing more concerts, because I decided to go back into the concert business and thinking I had experienced failure, and I trust the guys that had lost me all the money to begin with. So this is where this all starts, and we're kids, no accounting, don't know anything about spending, thinking that paying ourselves a paycheck is like buying a pair of jet skis and buying clothes. And we do invest a lot of the money legitimately. I put a couple $100,000 into concerts, 200,000 or 300,000. We bought like this nightclub.
Now wait, 600 grand, is this from a bunch of kids or now?
Yeah, it's kids and their parents.
Still kids.
Yeah, it's all kids and their parents. And now you got
none of these parents are coming to you for, some sort of substantiation about what's happening?
No, you could have told them whatever. And what's crazy is, like, one of our defenses at trial is you're a 50-year-old adult. Now, these aren't poor individuals. These aren't
of course.
the grandma that is giving your life savings.
Yeah, you would think sophisticated people have this money.
This isn't like Mike retired and this is all of his pension money. They're in their 40s or 50s. They have good paying jobs and they're doing investments on the side. And here's 50 grand. Not many adults have 50 grand liquid to just pass over. So, and that's what
to an 18-year-old kid, especially.
One kid had won a lawsuit with New York Sports Club, and he had like a few $100,000. But he was a kid too. It was a bunch of kids. The trial was a high school reunion. Kids just, testifying about other kids, and it was very crazy.
It must have been.
This goes on, and what ends up happening is I'm promising this money, and this ends up going on for a period of 5 or 6 months. I'm promising these returns to people. And the problem is in the concert business is there's no cash flow. So if I'm promising you, 50% return on, say, 30K in 45 days, the concerts aren't happening for 6 months down the line. And what the main sticking point here is that the electronics turn out to be fake. So that business becomes debunked right off the bat. So that ends up happening, and there's no cash flow. So what it turns into is an accidental Ponzi scheme, because I'm taking money from Peter to pay Paul. Because in my mind, I'm 18. I can't get a loan from a bank. I have no credit history, but people borrow from one card to pay off another card, or one loan to pay off another one, or refinance a mortgage. So in my mind, I'm thinking that's what I was doing. I was borrowing, because these agreements were structured as loans. You are loaning my company money for a fixed interest rate, and I waived the right to usury and all of that. So that's what I'm thinking I was doing. And my plan was, when the electronics business went defunct, my plan was that I would just keep paying off people with other people's money until the concerts made money, 5 or 6 months later.
Right.
Now, all of these concerts this go around, this is like fall of 2013. I'm 18. Looked like they were making money, and we're actually making money, but then they all got canceled by a series of unfortunate events, or things would happen, like Chief Keef didn't show up, so we had to refund everyone's money back, lose the venue money, everything like that. One arena show we did with Tyga, the venue canceled outside bus tickets, which lost like 2,000 sales overnight. Another one, a club lost its liquor license a day before. All of these things happened. Or someone forgot to collect openers' money, and it was a series of unfortunate events. So we lost all the money. All the money I needed to pay off these individuals, and as time goes on, like we extended it from 30 days to 45 days to 60 days, like their repayments, and I reduced the interest rate to like 30%. But by the time this is all done and every concert failed, the debt was like $1.2 million with all the interest. The actual out of pocket was about $490,000.
Okay.
But the debt was that high with the interest. And everyone's calling you every day. They're demanding their money. The worst thing in the world is owing. You know, you don't want to owe.
Oh yeah.
Debt
How are
collectors.
you dealing with that every day? Like mom and dad don't know. Like how do you go through that stress every day and not crack
Yeah,
as an 18-year-old kid?
I didn't come clean to them until it was too late, like right at the end, right when the cops started investigating. But you know, I was the king of do not disturb. Like I'd put my phone on airplane mode, or I'd block phone numbers, and people would be looking for me or showing up, and it was a really bad period of time. And this whole thing, like you hear about these scams, they last years. This lasted a few months, like a couple months. We lived nice for about a month. This was not an intentional thing, you know. This unraveled quickly. There is no houses being bought or cars.
Right.
If you read the articles, it's just jet skis. That's what they made a big stink upon. Oh, we bought jet skis. But when you add up the bad purchases, it made up less than $100,000.
Wow.
It's not like I stole $500,000 and put it in my pocket. Most of that money went to other people's returns, or to the concerts, or to any other investments we made.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to discuss the court case, but as an outsider looking in, it seems like you have no ill intent. You're just an 18-year-old, doesn't know what he's doing exactly. And, you know, you're making all these mistakes, but it's not intentional. You're not running an intentional Ponzi scheme. You're not Madoff. You're not going out and you know, buying luxury automobiles or, you know, living this high lux life. So obviously we're going to talk about it more, but I cannot believe the federal government went in after an 18-year-old kid with a case like this.
Yeah, I mean, it started with the state. The kids, what happened was the kids went to the police, not even the parents. I think if there was no kids involved, I think the parents would have just ate the loss, because some made money, or some would have been too embarrassed to go, or they would have just chalked it up to business. But you got to understand the kids who are now 18 at college, who maybe invested $1,000, got a few grand back, and then reinvested a couple, and thinking they kept rolling it over, because say they roll it over to 5, then that becomes 10. They think they have 30 grand. That's like a lifetime of money to these kids at that age, you know? So they're the ones that are really angry, and they go to the cops. The cops start to see, oh, there's all these kids owed $50, $60, $100,000. There's got to be something here. And then they get their parents involved. The kids turn in the parents, and now there's a whole case. Apparently, from what we heard, the state declined to prosecute. Now, how did I get it prosecuted in the state? I would have got like deferred prosecution. Read articles all the time about sex offenders getting a couple of years, or even people that steal hundreds of thousands of dollars from their employer. They're ordered restitution and accelerated rehabilitation. No prison time. That's probation for a year. And then they're discharged. Exactly. That should have been me.
Yeah.
You know? So
I'm shocked that things transpired the way they did as we get into this. It's mind-boggling to me that someone so young who made mistakes, not intentional defraud, went to prison. But yeah, let's keep talking about it. It's crazy.
Even on the federal level, when the feds did get involved, the feds have the option to offer a deferred prosecution agreement. They wouldn't do that either. They were so set on prison time. That's the only reason why I went to trial. They would not give me a plea deal. That was just, I would have pled guilty for no jail time and like house arrest or probation and restitution. They wouldn't give me that. They wanted 2, 3, 4 years. It didn't make sense. So they spent hundreds of thousands. They spent more than the restitution order to take this case to trial, to everything. It just doesn't make sense at all.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Now, was there anything that you did looking back that you did wrong in your interactions with them? Any type of arrogance or
100%,
something like that?
I was definitely arrogant and cocky, and I had opened the club I used to promote at.
You know, let's go back a little bit to literally when they rang your doorbell, like how you first became aware that they were investigating you.
Well, so what happens was I knew about the local police investigation because they had called me to their office, or they had left a voicemail, and I went with an attorney this time. That attorney ended up firing me as a client because he said the legal services were free, and then sends me a bill for 15 grand and tries to sue me. Wow. So at that point, I'm like, I can't afford an attorney. I didn't know anything about public defenders, or I thought that public defenders were shitty attorneys, so I'll just represent myself or whatever. And so I go to this meeting with the Department of Banking thinking it's a civil matter, and I go with every document, all the addresses, contracts, bank records. They had none of this yet. I gave them everything.
Wow.
Put together every dot, every T, and it told them the whole story for like 6 hours in depth. Like the whole entire spiel up until that point in time.
And you're by yourself?
By myself. I'm thinking it's a civil thing. I'm just trying to clear my name. I said, guys, please just help me. Like, this is the situation. I just want this to stop. Everyone to get paid back. Let's work something out. Little do I know, behind the door, there's postal inspectors waiting for me. They pull me into a room. They don't give me the target letter till after after the meeting, and they say, "You don't need a lawyer. We're here to help you." And then they question me, targeted questions based on that interview. Then they serve me the target letter. That's when I go and get a criminal defense attorney and tell my parents after that moment. But I had no idea that this, they never should have let it. I was just turned 18.
Yeah.
Or I was a couple months shy from turning 19. How do you let a kid, like those grown officials, sit there without an attorney?
That's an embarrassment.
They didn't say you should have an attorney or anything. And these are civil, like Department of Banking officials. How do you do that?
Yeah, that's an embarrassment.
Even the
it really is.
Inspectors, that's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, you're coming there with all that documentation. You're cooperating. You're not lying. What more could they ask? You're 18 years old.
I told them everything, and then they had the nerve to charge me for lying, which they made such a big stink about from that meeting, and I won that at trial. The jury saw right through that because I was just a kid without a lawyer, and they didn't do the process right either. Not that it mattered. They overcharge you, so they group everything together. But I'm just glad we got that win about that. I didn't lie to them. I told them the truth. I told them everything. It was wrong what they did.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. I mean, the morality is disgusting, bro. Grown adults dealing with an 18-year-old kid like this. You could tell when you're in law enforcement who is cooperating and who's trying to get over. You gave them the documentation.
I just don't know why there couldn't have been a deal to be worked out. Even like at trial, the head U.S. attorney came because it was deliberating for a few days, and they were like to my lawyer, "Why are we here? Like why couldn't there have been a deal?" I felt like if the jury held out a little bit more, we could have struck a deal. But there was never any deal, so that's why I went to trial. And my defense attorney believed in the case. I mean, he thought there was no criminal intent and that these parents were overzealous. They were greedy, especially the ones that would make 25 grand and then reinvest. A lot of greed played in part of this. And I made nothing. There were some people that made a lot, and I didn't make anything. So,
how many charges did you get hit with?
They ended up indicting me like 9 months after that. We were in talks with them, like we knew what was going on, like with the grand jury. People were getting called, and they told my attorney I'd be able to turn myself in. Well, they lied about that because in January 2015, they did the whole 5 a.m. knock at the door.
What?
Storm the place. Wow. Federal agents, and this was like you would have thought I was a terrorist. There was FBI, IRS, criminal division, postal inspectors, state troopers, and Danbury cops all there. Wow. And then they tip off the News Times. The article's being published as I'm leaving the house in cuffs. It doesn't make sense. And their whole article is, Danbury nightclub owner because I own a nightclub at this point. And that's something the news always got wrong. I ended up owning a nightclub during this period of time while I was being investigated. I reopened it. There was like the first one that was a part of the case, but then the main one, Tuxedos, that had nothing to do with the case. There was no fraud there. It was a legitimate business. And I think they didn't like that I was operating that during this because I'm in social media, I'm in the news. I literally after I got arrested and got bond, I did a interview with NBC Connecticut where they came and toured the place. And, back then it's even worse, to talk to the news when you get arrested. Now with social media, you see people get indicted and issue a statement, the same day. But I'm like, it's not fair that they can write press releases and I can't say what's on my mind, So I did an NBC thing, and they got mad about that. So they didn't like that I was still going. I think they took the case. The feds took the case thinking this was an open and shut plea deal. I don't think they would have taken it looking back on it if they knew it was going to trial. Okay.
And so they, even though they went to trial, like they weren't giving you an opportunity to plead out.
They did.
Or the plea was just incredible.
It was prison time. It was like 3 years. It was something crazy. Yeah. Didn't make sense.
That's nuts. Yeah. And then I can't even imagine, what are the legal fees for a federal attorney going to trial?
So I was able to, we paid for it. My mom paid for the attorney a $7,500 retainer. And then he was able to file for CJA, like the court appointed aspect where they get paid by the court system because they
Okay.
didn't have any money.
Okay.
So he was able
I
to
was
do
going to say, I
that.
can't even imagine what that would be.
Yeah, the federal system has a good program where you actually have like an outside law firm that's like CJA approved or whatever to
Okay.
do that. So I was able to do that. But it also, to fight the Fed, you need like a huge law firm. It's just me and my attorney, no paralegal, nothing, versus this army of people. They're literally, the agents are all wheeling in baskets of files every day. Who knows if those even pertain to your case, but they put on a show. You
Oh,
know,
yeah.
the guys that win a trial and stuff have the mega. If I could do it all over again and had money, I would have got the Wall Street firm that was like seasoned in white collar. You know,
Oh, no doubt. And
not
you
that
look
my
at a $2
lawyer
million
did a bad job.
defense.
Yeah, but that's what wins the cases. You know,
Yeah. Oh,
not
absolutely.
because you're missing angles. You're missing. You can't possibly and have other caseloads. Fine tune it. You know, you just can't do it.
Yeah, no. I mean, the criminal justice system is slanted. It's rich and poor, and that's it. And if you're rich, you're getting one type of justice, and if you're poor, you're getting another. And it doesn't matter if you're black, white, whatever the color is. It's whether or not you have money.
Yeah.
So I can't even imagine going through that. So yeah, as you're going through, I mean, how are mom and dad as you're going through all this? How
Yeah,
are they dealing with it?
it was really hard on my mom, especially she came from the family where you got to go to school, got to get good grades, got to get a normal job. My dad was more like the black sheep of the family, but it was tough on them. You know, it was tough for while I was in prison. It was tough for years after. I don't think it got better till really I started to get known on social media and share my story and find success after all this.
Oh yeah.
But they always were the people that you're the parents where your son's in prison and it's such a taboo subject.
Of course.
So they were definitely brought through the ringer on that. It was extremely hard for them.
So when the jury comes back to deliver their verdict, are you expecting a guilty at that point?
No, well, so they always said the prosecutor was hoping for a slam dunk, if you're found guilty immediately. But what happens is they deliberate for 3 days. It wasn't an immediate verdict. And we got a note back one time saying they couldn't reach a verdict. But in the court system, it's so rigged. Whenever a note comes like that, the judge has to order them to go back and deliberate again. But the judge doesn't say to them, if you come back a second time, then it'll be a hung jury. It just makes it seem to them that they have to reach a verdict. Then another note comes back because this is the day before Thanksgiving. It's Wednesday. Thanksgiving's Thursday. And they said, what if we can't reach a verdict today? Then they say, well, it's going to resume back in December after the break. And 20 minutes later, they come back on a verdict, and it's a mixed verdict. The first two were not guilty, which was cool because I'm like, damn, we won. Then it was a hung jury on some. Then it was guilty, guilty, guilty because there's 15 counts.
Okay.
I won 7 or 8 of them, and then I think I was found guilty on 6 of them. But it didn't make sense. How could I be guilty on one transaction and not guilty on another in the same time period? Because a big thing of wire fraud is you have to have intent. So how do I have intent here and not intent here? It didn't make sense.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's amazing. You see that over and over where a jury will come back, they're hung at that point, and then for whatever reason, judges get back there and half hour later they come back with a verdict. Well, how'd you guys do it that fast? You're talking about someone's life, and it's just you know what? I want to get the hell out of here. It's incredible the dynamics that work there, but it's human beings, man. So they come back, they give you that guilty, and I can't even imagine how you feel at that point.
I mean, I felt like crap. It was shitty, but it was back to business. I went back to the club because I still had bond. I was out on bail, and
How old are you?
I was 20.
Wow.
Yeah, I was 20. The case had dragged on for over a year, and then sentencing was a year later, but right before sentencing.
A year?
Yeah, because it kept
shit.
getting pushed. Yeah.
Wow.
So sentencing didn't happen until this was November 2015. Sentencing was November 2016. It was a year. Yeah, it was a full year. Or
That's
October,
crazy.
end of October.
And are you still thinking possible probation?
We were hoping for probation or house arrest.
Yep.
I mean, the fact that the judge had left me on bond and stuff, and I was young, and I think the benefit of going to trial is the judge got to understand me and the whole case. But what ends up happening is I got my bond revoked a month before sentencing because I went out of state to the casino to gamble. Because in Connecticut, you have to be over 21. I wasn't 21 yet, and I was going out of state to help pay the bills at the club to keep the concerts going. I would go to
Okay.
Empire City and Yonkers to help pay the bills, play baccarat on the electronic tables. People that were working with me at the club snitched, told the feds, they told the judge, revoked my bond, and I went to prison. Then 3 weeks after that, I got sentenced to 3 years. Judge wasn't happy about that. So who knows if I would have gotten, a year and a day or a lighter sentence. I think that just really pissed the judge off.
Oh, I'm sure.
So I got 3 years in prison.
Damn. And then where do you get sent to?
So first I started off at Wyatt, the detention center in Rhode Island. Then I go to Brooklyn MDC, where like El Chapo was, and like Diddy.
That's a shithole, isn't it?
Yeah, they closed the worst one, MCC, but then MDC is just as bad. It's one of those tower high rises. Sucks. You're in cells. There's tiers. Nothing to do. From there, I went to Fort Dix. That's where Diddy is now. That's like a college campus. That's a low security prison. I thought I was going to a camp, but they messed up my points, I think, and I was one too many, so I went to a low first. And at the low, everyone thinks I'm a sex offender. I don't know anything about prison politics or paperwork or anything. They think I'm a chomo, like a child molester. It wasn't good.
First of all, you look like you're 15 years old. I can't even imagine going there looking like you do.
Exactly. I have the
You still look like you're 18 years old, bro. Like, it's going to be great for the rest of your life, but in prison, you don't want to have that young look to you.
Exactly. So that happens, and then I got shipped around. I went from there to, I was in Philly. I was back at Brooklyn. I went to Danbury, my hometown, where Orange is the New Black's based on. And then I went to, where'd I go? I went to Oklahoma City and Chicago, and then I did my all through transit. Like I went on Con Air. Those weren't actual spots. They're just like Brooklyn, like the detention centers. The reason why they shipped me from Danbury is because I dated a guard's cousin, and he reported it, that he was friendly with me. So they called it a conflict of interest. And then from there, I went to Oxford, Wisconsin, which was a prison camp in Wisconsin. That was sweet. That's like club fed. What you hear about, like in the movies and stuff. They got the basketball courts, the volleyball courts, the bocce ball courts, all that. And I spent a year there, all the way in Wisconsin. My dad visited me once, flew in for the weekend, about halfway through that time. And then I got out in January 2019, when I was like 23 years old.
Damn. So what's your first welcome to prison moment where you're like, man, this shit's a real deal? Something you saw go down.
Well, the very first time was when I was at the detention center awaiting sentencing. Some guy cut another guy in line while waiting, because the food would come on a cart into the tier. And guy cuts this guy. They start fighting. All of a sudden, you hear one guy scream, and a piece of his finger goes flying across the room. And then you see the little nub, and he's going to grab for it. And he's like, "You bit my finger! You bit my finger!" And then they locked us down. That was my first prison lockdown. We were in the cells for like 2 weeks after that.
Holy
Just locked in the cell, no shower, no commissary. It sucks. There's nothing to do, just to read.
Yeah.
If you're lucky, if you have a good book. Terrible. They punish everyone, those detention centers. Even in prison in general, like when something happens in Texas, they're locking you down in Atlanta. It's just nuts what they do. But that was my first really real violent moment. And then going to Fort Dix and not knowing the politics, I didn't know anything about paperwork, so I went to sit down at the chow hall my first time fresh off the bus, and these white guys are telling me I can't sit at their table because I'm a sex offender. And I'm trying to explain to them I'm not, and they want me to go sit with the chomos, the child molesters, who are these old white guys. I fit the persona with the glasses and being white. And I tell them I'm there for fraud, and they don't believe me. They say that's what they all say, that all these guys are there for, fraud.
Yeah.
So it was just,
So how does that work now when the paperwork, how does that whole process work where it finally gets cleared up and they realize?
So a lot of those guys were able to just Google me because my case was online. They'll look at the records, or the guards will tell them, but my lawyer sent in my paperwork too. And I carried that wherever I went. I'm like, here you go, guys. Like, here's my paperwork. They want to see like your sentencing transcript or your actual docket to show that you didn't snitch. and you're not a sex offender. And the guys that demand paperwork, half the time they're snitches, you know?
Oh yeah.
It's all ridiculous, the
Okay.
politics of it. Now, a lot of these guys are no good. A lot of guys hide behind religion. You see a lot of like sex offenders hiding with the Muslims because the Muslims protect each other. The Jews are another one. It's crazy what goes on.
Oh, I can imagine. So do you like fall in with I don't want to say a gang, but how are you protecting yourself, so to speak?
Well,
Uh, uh,
in the feds, there's not in the lower security prisons. It's not really gangs. It's they call it a car, which is who you run with, like the state you run with. So it'd be like the Connecticut car, or the New England car, or the New York car, or the New Jersey car. I didn't really run with anyone because I didn't know about the politics in the beginning. But then this thing happened about paying for protection, which is a story I told when I started going on social media. It's how I just befriended like these guys that were high up in the New York car, who were big jack black guys who had no money, and it's not like they said, hey, pay us to protect you. I just helped them out, 30-40 bucks a week, coffee, commissary, whatever, and put money on their books or got them commissary, and they looked after me because in
oh,
the
so you can actually you could cross racial lines like that? Like you
yeah,
wouldn't have to pay white guys?
there's no racial tensions like that at a low security
Ah,
prison,
okay.
or at the state level. So yeah, I was friends with a ton of black guys, Spanish guys. I had more black and Spanish friends than white friends because all the white
Ah,
guys have a bad rep. There's only a couple good white guys now at the camp. They don't allow sex offenders at the camp. Most of
okay.
those guys are all white. You'll have some black guys or Spanish guys that are like low level drug dealers, but majority are white collar white guys.
Okay. So as you do in your time, I mean, um, like what's your day to day in a prison?
I got into working out in prison. My big jacked Asian guy taught me how to kind of work out for the first time. Lift weights. I played sports. I was on the prison softball team. I read a lot. The first year I was like focused on my case too, because since I went to trial, I could get an appeal. So I was reading my transcripts. I gamble a lot. Did dice. I learned spades, the card game, and I'd say like the first year was really slow. After that, it kind of speeds up. The year at the camp was the best. I was the cheesecake guy. I made prison cheesecakes.
Did you really?
Yeah, non-baked cheesecakes. You didn't need an oven. You put like a bucket of ice in the like the trash in the mop bucket with a trash bag, and that's how you chill it for like you lock it up and you use like coffee creamer and lemon juice, and they had cream cheese on commissary, which was gross, but I worked in the kitchen in the bakery, and I
Yep.
would smuggle it out of the chow hall, and I'd make good
So you
cheesecakes
selling them?
out here. So, yeah, I'd sell them for $2 a slice. So it was fun. I didn't need the money, but I just wanted to hustle. I wanted something to do.
Yep.
I was working on writing a book in prison that ate up a lot of time, and just hanging out, met good guys, and watched TV, watched movies, and it's like an adult daycare essentially. You're just like
You don't hear that too often.
Yeah, it's like Groundhog's Day at the camp level that last year. And moving around a lot before that. Because I did about 17 months moving around, and then 12 months at the camp. So moving around helps break up the time too.
Okay. So how many different facilities did you stay at
Uh,
overall?
so we got Wyatt, we got Brooklyn, Danbury, Fort Dix, um, what is that? Philly, Oklahoma, Chicago, and then Wisconsin. So about eight facilities
Wow.
that I've visited.
8 in 3 years. That is incredible. So how's your mindset through all this? Are you down on yourself, or are you feeling pretty decent? You can't wait to get out and start fresh.
I think it was definitely hard at first. The first few months drag on. That's when you're really beat up. I think what keeps you going is you have hope for the appeals or bond pending appeal, and then when all that gets rejected, you're like already halfway through. So because it takes forever. So you're like, all right, I got 13, 14 months in. What's another 13, 14 months? What
Yeah.
sucked is at the time is it didn't have like the First Step Act and stuff. So like had I got that same sentence now, I would have been out a lot sooner, probably in like a year and a half. But
Oh, really?
that kept me going, and then I just spent a lot of time focusing, mapping out on like the future. I wanted to get back in the nightclub business. I had plans for what businesses I would own, what cars I would have, my LLC name, all of that. Nothing worked out the way I had planned, which is, it brought me on a different journey. But
Oh, yeah.
I wanted to be like the next Wolf of Wall Street, get the book deal, get the movie deal. I wanted to do all those things. None of that came to fruition, but
Yet. It still may.
yeah, but it was a totally different path. That's what I tell guys coming out of prison too, is that what you plan for is going to take you in a different direction, and for the better too. When I speak
Oh,
in
yeah.
prisons, I always send that message too. But it is important to still plan for stuff. Write it down, have hope that stimulates the mind, but be prepared for that not to work out. But better opportunities will come from that.
Okay. So as you're going through the system, is it actually rehabilitating guys in any way, shape, or form? Or
No,
they're literally just being held?
Yeah, there's zero rehabilitation. I mean, the case managers and counselors will have like open hours between like 12 and 1. Well, that's their lunchtime, and they keep the doors shut. They let like inmates run the buildings with jobs and stuff. Like people will make you pay to switch jobs, and they don't care. There's no release plan. You got to think too. They're assigned. Sometimes some of these case managers will work 2 buildings. That's like
Wow.
that. If there's 2 case managers in a building, 400 guys at each, they're at least have 200 guys. So it's crazy. They're bogged down.
Yeah.
You can't really blame them. So you have the young guys that care, but they're too bogged down to actually be effective. And then you have the old guys that are burnt out that don't give a shit. There's
Yeah.
nothing really in the middle, It's just
Damn.
impossible. Too much red tape, too many politics. There's not really that many classes. At least back then, it's getting a lot better with like the laws that have changed.
Okay.
It's just not good for rehabilitation. Think about it. You're with a bunch of criminals.
Yeah.
There's a lot of white collar guys planning their next scheme. Guys would always come to me and say, "What do you do? How can I do that?" The best ones are like the bank robbers. One guy's in for a violent crime with a gun. The other guy's in for just passing a note. But one guy gets 15 years. The other guy gets 5 years. So they're planning on how could they do the same thing.
It's amazing. It's funny. I responded to a bank robbery one time in Atlanta. I get there, and his note he left on the top of the desk, and I kind of looked under it, and I could see writing. And I just flipped it over my pen. This genius took his paycheck stub with his social security number on it to write out the letter, and then forgot it. So the feds get it. They had 2 FBI agents, and they're like, "Hey, officer," I'm like, "Just solved the case for you." They're like, "What do you mean?" I show them. I'm like, I just cannot believe he's this stupid, but here it is. Literally, I'm like, "Can I give you my phone number? I got to find out if it's him." Within 2 hours, like, it was him. We got him. Like,
Crazy.
that one blew my mind. Yeah. You can't make
Crazy.
this shit up, Ian.
No, you really can't. It's nuts.
So, all right, you do your time, you get out, and then what's your next plan? How do
I
you
wanted to
approach
get back
things?
into the nightclub business, but that didn't work out. And thank God it didn't, because COVID would have happened a year later. So that would all have been shut down. But no one was going to
Yep.
give me money, and I couldn't raise money. So I ended up getting a job at Whole Foods. And I worked my way up from a hot bar chef making $15 an hour to 3 years later, their prepared foods team leader making almost $33 an hour.
Nice.
And I thought that was going to be my life for the rest of my life. Work up my way up to a regional manager or store manager and make good money. I was able to, coming out of prison, I didn't have anything. So I got a car, built credit, got a girlfriend, got a dog, got an apartment, paid for health insurance, paid for my bills for the first time, did all these things. But when you're an entrepreneur at heart, it doesn't really go away. So my friend had convinced me, the old videographer of the nightclub that I used to own, said,
Yep.
"Ian, you should start sharing your story on TikTok. Just talk about concerts or whatever, your time as a nightclub owner." So I started doing it in like July, August 2022. And then I ended up deciding, hey, I'm going to start talking about prison. And this is the first time I ever talk about prison before. And it goes viral. I talk about paying for protection or being in solitary in prison. And I just do that for a few months, building a following. And before I knew it,
And what caused you to be in solitary?
that was just, there was one time when I got caught on a cell phone, like on a video on a cell phone in our room. They raided the room. And they got into the phone. They saw me getting choked out because we were like wrestling. So they put us all in solitary for investigation. And then the other time was when I was in Danbury and they said I dated the guard's cousin. So they put me in solitary for that. On an
They put you in solitary for that?
Yeah, on an admin.
Wow.
Yeah, so I spent
Holy
a few
shit.
months. Oh, it's so stupid because they say you got
Months?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
I lost a lot of weight. Lost a lot of weight in solitary, and you get.
I can imagine.
It's crazy.
So what are you in there? 23 hours a day in that cell?
You know, on the weekends, 24. But
Wow.
they do rec at 6 a.m. So half the time I'm not waking up at 6 a.m. It's cold out. You got to put your jumpsuit on, this or that. And that's the only time you get alone if your bunkie wants to go out. So I'd say you go out for rec. I'll stay there. And I would just sleep, you know? You're trying to sleep away most of your time.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I did that. And then I quit Whole Foods, started doing the social media. And then January 2023, I started the podcast. Didn't know what I was doing. Just started doing interviews, and then I learned and got better at interviewing people. Started to mix in not only just people that went to prison, but law enforcement and other people in the criminal justice system, and went from 1 episode to 2 episodes to 3 episodes. Now I do 5 episodes a week, and it started to get momentum. It started to get legs. Got better at interviewing, got better production, learned how to do the editing, the filming, got a studio, and turned it into a business. And it's just evolved ever since. Now it's my full-time job, and have almost 600 episodes now recorded.
Damn. That's unbelievable.
Got to do Mr. Beast because of that, which was a really cool experience. I never would have been found by his team had I not put myself out on social media. So I'm actively...
And what was that experience like with him? What did you do?
That was harder than real prison. He put me and a cop, an NYPD cop, in a prison cell for 100 days that he built. And I had to survive 100 days to win $500,000, and we made it through. This was this time last year, and really hard because there's no contraband. There was no books the first 30 days. You only get rec an hour a day. You had to eat their meals. It was tough.
Really?
But we made it through, and I was able to pay off a lot of my restitution because of that.
Nice. That's all unbelievable, man. And then, so now I saw that you just signed with, what is it? A big company, right? You just made an announcement last week.
Lipson, yeah. It's a podcast company. So they're going to be selling our ads, and I'm going to be under their network. And like you hear about all those mega deals by like these big podcasters. This is like a step towards lining myself up for that down the road.
Nice.
Which is cool to have that backing.
Oh yeah, I mean, your setup is beautiful. It's a whole, basically a floor of a office building, and then you have an upstairs. And what do you have? 4 or 5 studios set up?
Yeah, we have 3 studios, including mine. Then we have the prison cell upstairs, and our lease is up.
That's so cool.
That we are actively looking to get a bigger space. So we'll see what happens. We want to bring on some more team members and really grow this thing to the next level.
Oh yeah. So where do you see yourself in 5 years? Get into films, movies, anything?
No, that's not my lane. I like podcasting. There's so much more to grow from this. Like, there's no cap, you know? Sky's the limit. I'm a small fish when you look at the big players, you know? There's more to grow. There's more to learn. Even today, like, we changed my podcast setup. I put a table in. And so I got rid of the chairs. We're doing the table look now. So it's a little bit more laid out, like the guest can lean on something. You can have placements and stuff. And then
it's funny. I had the pillows under my arms when I was there, and I saw a couple of comments about the pillows under my arms. It was just comfortable.
We're going to start doing other content where it's like, say, a corrupt guard versus a good guard, just like talking to each other, and I'm the mediator. We're going to do different things, produce more stuff, do different types of content. We're really going to grow this thing.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I was actually surprised about the law enforcement. You know, I thought most of the, the theme was prisoners and criminals, so to speak, who have interesting stories. You know, it's amazing. Like I tell people all the time, when you hear everyone's story, their origination, what got them to start doing what they're doing, we're more similar than dissimilar. Some of these stories are just incredible. Like is there any one that kind of sticks out to you right now that's like one of the craziest things you've ever heard or just touched you? And
I always say the Clark Fredericks episode. I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but he was abused by his neighbor or Boy Scouts leader or whatever that was a cop, an active cop, big in the community. It fucks up his whole life, addiction, debt, everything, and he runs into him like 30 years later, follows him home and kills him. Kills the guy. Yeah.
Actually, from him, I think you have Pasquale coming on, right?
Yeah, you know Pasquale? Yeah.
Pasquale, my wife, are good friends.
Wow.
He's from Long Island. He was actually on my podcast, and I give him kudos for speaking about sexual abuse.
Yeah, that's how I met Pasquale, and then like Kevin Donaldson and that whole group too.
Yeah, Kevin was great. I was on his as well.
Yeah, so they're that good group. But see, if I did inmates every time, like there's some channels that just do inmates, I'd get bored because a lot of it is similar stories. I love having different perspectives, you know? The other day I put out an episode with a guy that builds prisons, and that's performing pretty well. Like he supplies the actual units and the parts and stuff. That was an interesting perspective. So it's about just doing different things. I like that aspect and branching off. People ask me all the time, well, doesn't it get played out? It's like, no, because first off, you have millions of people that went to prison, but then you also have lawyers, judges, prosecutors, cops, victims, everything. You know, there's so much to do.
Yeah, no, I love your episodes. Yours reminds me, I mean, it's obviously different production and the way questions are asked, but Soft White Underbelly and yours kind of remind me of each other in that you guys take such different stories, such different people, and you highlight them. And, you know, I love hearing the stories, man. Some of these stories are just incredible.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, yours included. So
thank you, Mike. I appreciate you, man.
Oh, absolutely, brother. So listen, it was fantastic having you on here. Your stories can go on for hours and hours. It's amazing, but we're gonna cut a little bit more. Cut it for short for this one, but I don't even know what the hell I'm saying. But I want to thank you so much for coming on. It was great speaking to you.
Of course,
loved hearing your story, and I wish you nothing but the best, brother. You are so humble, such a nice guy. And the universe is going to reward you for that. I promise you.
Same to you, Mike. I appreciate you, man. You're a good dude. Always here for you.
Thank you so much, brother. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Guys, hope you, I know that you liked what you saw here. If you do, please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you soon. Ian, thank you so much. I would ask you to give your social medias, but everyone knows how to get in touch with Ian Bick if they would like to. And if they want to be a guest in your show, they can apply to do so, correct?
Yeah, just at ianbick.com, or if you recommend them too. We always take
absolutely
requests.
Yeah, I have. I know that Xander's coming in June 20th.
Oh,
the Air Force PJ. So yeah, he's excited to do it. I'm actually going to meet up with him in Miami in a couple of days. So yeah, super pumped, brother.
Awesome.
So all right, Ian, thank you so much once again, guys. We'll see you soon.
Order, shot fire, officer down, shot fire, officer down. Got a city officer down, shot fire.
223, be advised, we have a visual on enemy paratroopers in grid Papa uniforms.
Welcome to the Resilient Warrior Nation, a podcast dedicated to inspiring hope and healing for first responders, military veterans, and anyone facing PTSD and trauma